respect came the keys to the city.
We could do any fucking thing we wanted to do in that whole fucking city. I mean, we owned the city. I mean, we were princes of the city. We were. No matter where the fuck we went.
He can go anywhere. It's like a magic carpet. He could just go anywhere he wants. You know, he could fly through the world.
Henry showcased his newfound wealth at the notorious mob hangout, the Copacabana.
To be able to go to the Copacabana, this was a major height of, I think, sophistication.
Go sit down at the fucking table in the Copa, and Sammy Davis come over and sit down and have drinks with you. Sinatra come over to the fucking table while he was there, you know. I mean, it was fucking wild. It was chaotic.
Henry was riding high. But when he met Karen, played by Lorraine Bracco in Goodfellas, he was forced to question his mobster lifestyle.
She didn't know what I did in the beginning. You know, she knew that, you know, I kind of, you know, I thought I was a union delegate, you know. And she was apart from that world that I was in with.
Henry and Karen married and moved to this leafy suburb in Long Island. Now Henry made his final attempt to escape the clutches of the Vario crew.
It was another way of trying to fucking, you know, insulate myself from those fucking lunatics that, you know, that I was partners with and, you know, hung with, you know.
Desperate to become legitimate, Henry bought the Suite, a supper club in Queens, New York.
It looked for a moment like he might actually become a restaurateur and a bar owner. That lasted just a matter of months. He just couldn't, he was drawn back in.
He just fucking followed me, you know. And the place, you know, the place thrived and became a fucking headquarters.
Within months, the Suite was a mob hangout full of the people Henry had tried to escape. One of the regulars was Tommy DeSimeone, played by Joe Pesci in Goodfellas.
Tommy was just a fucking loose horse, a fucking homicidal fucking maniac, you know. The film actually fucking, you know, kind of softened him up.
It gave him enjoyment to break somebody's wrists, murder somebody, beat him up with a bat.
Yeah, he was actually a psycho, and then he was fucking strung out on coke constantly.
Tommy would end Henry's attempt to go legit by committing a savage murder inside his club.
One night, it was really late, and a guy by the name of Billy Batts was in there. He was a made organized crime figure, very important kind of guy.
Jimmy and Tommy just fucking beat his fucking head in. You know, there was an area where we had a slate floor, you know, and Tommy beat him so fucking hard that the pistol fell apart.
Understand? Yeah.
Get the dog!
In Goodfellas, the hit was over a petty argument, but in reality, this vicious murder was over an ongoing turf war.
There was a B story there that never was shown in Goodfellas. Billy Batts had just come home from prison. He had all the Sherlock business there, the bookmaking business. And Jimmy, you know, when he was away, Jimmy took it all over, basically. And Jimmy knew he had to kill him eventually.
They crossed a line that, unfortunately, there's just no coming back, and somebody's gonna have to pay for it.
Billy Batts was a made man, a fully initiated member of the mafia. The penalty for killing a made man was death. To ensure the body was never found, they threw Batts into the trunk of Hill's car and drove to Pennsylvania to dig his grave. On the journey, Hill made a chilling discovery. Batts wasn't dead.
It was sickening. It was fucking sickening. It was actually sickening, you know? And then we opened the fucking trunk, and you know, he looked at me, he says, Henry, you know, and he just backed the fuck up, you know. They didn't actually shoot him. They just fucking, Tommy just stabbed him 30 or 40 fucking times. Fucking horrible.
That ended Henry's ever being able to walk away. It was over. I mean, the Suite was gone. He was now the participant in a homicide. And his bond now was to those with whom he had done the homicide.
I was always there to do what I had to do. But yet, you know, it used to turn my fucking stomach, you know. And I mean, I lived in fear every fucking day of my life. You know, I did, you know. I mean, I was no... you know, I didn't like the violence involved, you know, but, you know, if I showed any sign of weakness, I know I'd get fucking killed.
Henry's dreams of escaping were over. He was back working in Vario's crew, having to do whatever was asked of him to survive. In 1972, a seemingly innocuous trip to Florida would result in his first incarceration.
Ultimately, they just do one thing too many, and they think they're going to get away with it, and they're not.
He and Jimmy went down to Florida to pick up some money that was owed. There was somebody had owed a lot of money to some organized crime guys.
We snatched him out of the fucking bar and beat the fuck out of him, you know, smacked the shit out of him, pistol whipped him.
My recollection is that we later found out the facts of that case and that they had chained somebody behind a car and dragged them for a good space. And but to Henry, that was just smacking somebody around a little bit.
He paid the fucking money the next day. But his sister worked for the FBI. We didn't know that.
On November the 3rd, 1972, following a successful FBI investigation, Henry and Jimmy Burke each received 10 years in federal prison on charges of interstate gambling and assault.
Fucking, you know, no big fucking deal, you know. 10 years, I'll do 6 years, you know. I'll still be a young guy when I got out, sure enough. You know, then fucking prison was a fucking joke.
You know, when you think of prison, you get pictures in your mind of all those old movies with rows and rows of guys behind bars. But it wasn't like that for wise guys. It really wasn't that bad, except that I missed Jimmy. He was doing his time in Atlanta.
Give me 2 steaks while you're in there, all right, John? Sure enough, she goes in.
I mean, everybody else in the joint was doing real time, all mixed together, living like pigs. But we lived alone.
We give the impression of it being breezier than it was. To add to the irony of it, with the music that's playing and that sort of thing and getting lobsters. But this was what we had guards who told us this is the reality too. I mean, it was all there. It's all there. I mean, there's certain people who were privileged.
Hill's privileges were paid for by bribing the guards, and that meant earning on the inside. Hill turned to fellow inmate Paul Mazzi, who showed him how much money could be made dealing narcotics.
They used to joke to us, you fucking stupid fucks, you fucking around with trailer trucks, we'll fucking give you 2 shoeboxes full of fucking heroin, and it's 10 times as much money as you make off 10 fucking trailers. You know, so it's a pretty fucking good idea.
That starts to eat away, and money always corrupts. Corrupts the corrupted.
It was a turning point for Henry. By selling narcotics, Hill was breaking a sacred mafia edict that was punishable by death.
The reason that they have the edict is not because they have any moral compunctions about the use of narcotics or selling narcotics. It's because the experience going back to the 50s and 60s is that drug dealers turn on the higher-ups, and the higher-ups in the organized crime families wanted to ensure they wouldn't be the victims of their underlings who got caught selling drugs.
It was too easy, you know what I mean?
Henry was now concealing his part in Billy Bat's death and his drug dealing from his mob bosses, and he was getting hooked on the drugs he was secretly selling. The high life was slipping away.
I was fucked. I was literally fucked, you know what I mean?
Mere months after his release from prison, Hill would become involved in the biggest cash robbery ever committed on American soil.
That's when life really became insane.
What should have been his defining moment would mutate into an orgy of violence, murder, and ultimately betrayal.
I was a dead man walking, and I knew it.
By the time Henry Hill was released from prison, his life in the mafia was spiraling out of control.
That's when life really became insane.
He had been involved in the execution of initiated mafia member Billy Batts and had started dealing drugs. He knew when the mafia finally found out, he was a dead man.
They were gonna kill me. Or kill my wife, or kill my kids.
And in 1978, Hill and mafia mentor Jimmy Burke pulled off the notorious Lufthansa heist, a robbery that spawned a vicious killing spree and ultimately led to Henry Hill's cold-hearted betrayal of the mob.
You didn't get me, motherfucker. No, I got you.
On Sunday, the 11th of December, 1978, Jimmy Burke's crew, acting on a tip-off from Henry Hill, pulled off the largest cash robbery ever committed on American soil.
5 heavily armed and masked men today fled with an estimated $3 million in cash and $300,000 in jewelry from the Lufthansa Airlines cargo hangar at New York's Kennedy Airport.
The robbery was front-page news across America. The actual figure stolen would rise to $5 million in cash and $1 million in jewels.
The news of the robbery was not only on the radio, but it was television. Of course, the tabloids splashed it across the front page, and it was huge news.
Everybody in the fucking city knew it was us. The whole fucking, I mean, there wasn't a wise guy that didn't know that we didn't do it. You know what I mean? And the fucking feds knew it too.
Within a day or two, law enforcement knew for sure, based on what their informants were telling them, that it was Jimmy Burke's crew that had carried out the robbery.
The FBI's first breakthrough was the discovery of the van used in the robbery, driven by Stax Edwards.
He was supposed to get rid of the fucking van, and they found his fucking fingerprints on it.
Before the FBI could interrogate Stax, Burke had him executed. The killing spree had begun.
It was very hard to develop evidence in the Lufthansa case because people who were involved started turning up dead.
The FBI put the entire Vario crew under surveillance. It wasn't long before they started giving themselves away by showing off their newfound wealth.
Stupid, I mean, guys with fucking IQs of, 26 are fucking going and buy fucking new Cadillacs, fucking $40,000 mink coats and shit.
And little by little, men who showed off that they had the money were killed.
He just tried to eliminate everybody. And he had to, because people were going fucking nuts. Fucking 3-month period, 12 fucking guys. And one wife, they found torso of out in the fucking, rolled up on the fucking beach in Rockaway.
One of them wound up getting killed and hung up in an ice truck, and he was frozen stiff. It took 3 days for the body to thaw so they could give it an autopsy.
I can remember one in particular who we brought into the strike force, told him that the FBI had informant information that he was going to be killed, and he listened politely and looked at both of us and said, "Can I go?" And he did, and he walked out, and his body parts washed up several weeks later.
Within months, Jimmy Burke, with Paul Vario's blessing, had slaughtered everyone involved in the heist. Henry Hill was the last man standing.
I seen the handwriting on the fucking wall. You know, I didn't have no way out. You know, I mean, I was fucked. I was literally fucked, you know what I mean?
Henry knew Jimmy wanted him dead. He had to find a way out.
You know, from having fucking life, on Easy Street, open, 3 or 4 restaurants. I got a fucking $1 million cash, I didn't have to launder it. Open a few restaurants. Now I'm in the fucking heroin business.
Throughout the Lufthansa killing spree, Henry had become heavily involved in narcotics trafficking. He knew that his mafia boss, Paul Vario, would order his death if he ever got caught.
We knew he was involved in the sale and distribution of heroin, cocaine, quaaludes, any number of different illegal drugs.
Hill's drug dealing had attracted the attention of the Nassau County Police Department, who placed him under surveillance. With Vario, Burke, the FBI, and the police closing in, amazingly, he would find a way to make his problems even worse.
Very quickly, he began to snort heroin, became addicted to heroin, became addicted to cocaine, and his judgment was pretty cloudy in those days.
He wound up putting a lot of drugs out on the street and didn't get paid for it. Couldn't remember half the time who he gave what to.
I got so fucking wacky on drugs. I mean, not wacky. I mean, I was able to function, but I was, strung out on, you fucking name it, I was strung out on it.
The anxiety and the pressure that he's feeling, I think, are really so evident the way Scorsese shot the scene.
I was gonna be busy all day. I had to drop off some guns at Jimmy's to match some silencers he had gotten. I had to pick up my brother at the hospital and drive him back to the house for dinner that night, and then I had to pick up some new Pittsburgh stuff for Lois to fly down to some customers I had near Atlanta.
They got more and more out of control. And there's no way it's going to slamming up against the wall. Everything's going to crash.
Oh, fuck. I mean, it was totally fucking insane. Totally fucking insane.
He had eluded us in so many different directions, and I was ready for it to be over.
Finally, after 41 days of surveillance, Nassau County Police Department swooped and arrested Henry Hill.
And the little fucking lights went on, and fucking, the blue lights and the red lights, and fuck, oh God,
He got caught. He got caught. The guy who thought he would never get caught, they'll get you.